Population of Kwigillingok is about 360 prior to Halong. So it's a pretty small community. Everybody knows everybody. About a week prior to Halong, we start getting notifications from NOAA that they're tracking a storm that can potentially re-strengthen as it reaches our Bering Sea, which is a couple miles south of us. And then as the days got closer, we started tracking that storm. I showed our tribal administrator how close it was. It was too close for comfort. All it took was a slight shift to the east. Sure enough, that happened overnight, and then there was about 30 of us 30 to 40 of us at the school that night. And then it was a long night. Howling winds like I've never heard before, and flood levels that we've never seen before. Well, as daylight broke, a bunch of us went and walked out as far as we can, and we couldn't get that far. And then I looked towards where my house used to be, and then there's nothing over there. West of us there's a airport that recorded a gust of 100 knots before the power went out. When I was a little kid, it was pretty hilly everywhere, and hardly any swamps. Majority of the land was firm, and over time these small hills started sinking in. A lot of them have already leveled with the ground. Swamps started forming.
There used to be really good-looking tundra land, and now everything has been sinking because of these frequent flooding that we're having to experience every year now, and they're not normal. They're extreme now. There's really no permafrost after this typhoon. I mean, 2 large lakes drained, and that's not a good sign for us.
We know that anytime that we disturb our tundra up here, whether you're subarctic all the way up to the Arctic slope, the northern region, anytime that you disturb, it melts. Add on that the fact that Alaska is warming 4 times the rate of the national average. Every time that we disturb and strip off and drill in, that leaves an impact for a very, very long time. Our roads have been degrading at an even more rapid speed than what they were in 2000. And so what happens is the permafrost, obviously, everything's pretty frozen in the wintertime. And so we have what's called breakup season. And that's when spring hits. And it's not that everyone's breaking up, it's just the ice is breaking up. So we get this freeze-thaw for quite a few months in a row. And we know that water can change and move everything. So that happens underneath our roads. That also happens underneath our homes. So we have a lot of homes here, especially in the lower lying areas, where either the permafrost is gone and their foundation has cracked. Some homes are on stilts where you can kind of jack them up if you need to, but at some point things just keep melting. The ground becomes almost like this jelly, like cornstarch and water. The permafrost thawing also affects our aquifers. So people are finding, higher amounts of lead and arsenic and things like that in their wells that they've drilled. And we think of the permafrost layer as kind of like a little protective layer. And it would make it to where things would not leach so quickly into the ground. It had kind of a filtration system. So as it melts, that filtration system's gone.
There's so much ice that's placed in the ground. So the big problem with permafrost engineering is ground ice, the amount of ground ice that's present. In soils like what we're in here in the tunnel, there's an extreme amount of ice, as you can see with this ice wedge. By volume, bulk volume, it's over 80% ice in here. And so you build a structure out at the surface, you couple that structure to the surface and you start to heat it. Then you're going to thaw this ice. If you build a roadway or a runway with black asphalt, you're going to heat this and you're going to thaw it. And once it thaws and that water displaces, then you get thaw settlement at the surface that is it's a detriment to most infrastructure.
The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers' $500 million coastal erosion project in Kwigillingok is north of the Arctic Circle and is the furthest point north in the United States. It's one of several the Corps is undertaking to address coastal erosion across Alaska. The project is well underway and expected to complete sometime in 2033.
So what's really driving the rapid erosion rates there is those permafrost soils are stable and they can be undercut. And so if you have storms or waves, they'll create an undercut under like a bluff or a ledge. But eventually that permafrost soil can't hold its own weight and that large block sort of slides off and collapses. And once that block collapses into the ocean, you're going to lose that entire block at a time. And so those places that have really fast rate, we'll see 2 or 3 episodes of that. It's called a niche erosion block collapse, because a little niche at the base of a bluff forms and then collapses. And so places that have really, really rapid erosion in the Arctic, we'll see that process happen multiple times in a summer. There's really in order to stop the erosion or prevent it, there's 2 goals at play. And the first is to keep the erosion or that niche from forming in the first place. And that's really the purpose of the revetment. It keeps the waves from sort of lapping away at that bluff. If the soils themselves all just melt and you lose that 30, 40, 50% ice by volume, and you just have that much less material, everything's going to fall down. And so it's not as much keeping it frozen as much as keeping the permafrost in place. And where a revetment really helps there is cold air can get in through the rocks in the wintertime. Everything freezes up hard. And then in the summer, those rocks actually shade the base of the permafrost soils.
You know, we've always been, in Alaska dealing with, Arctic and subarctic climates, dealing with permafrost, dealing with things melting and freezing. I guess what's changed a lot is the variability and the unpredictability of the weather, and the way that impacts not only the work we do but how we get to the work that we do. We build a lot of ice roads, and that's become less predictable in terms of the seasonality, when you can count on cold weather. And then also, of course, we see more storms and storm events and things of that nature. With us in construction, we're always dealing with risk, right? And so to us, it is another risk that we need to take into consideration, is that we might not have the exact same occurrence that's been like an average for previous years. So we try to plan for variations in that. I'm not a climate scientist, but I can tell you that definitely in the 22 years that I've been doing this, it has become less predictable. A best practice for working in the Arctic is, if it's frozen, keep it frozen, and if it's thawed, keep it thawed. And that, a lot of times, that consideration will be not only your final design. Sometimes we'll do insulation to protect frozen soils underneath, because when we build a road over something that previously was tundra, we're changing the thermodynamic characteristics of the land there, right?
We had record-breaking floodwaters. We had 8.1 feet of mean higher water. And from the August storm, we had like 4 feet above mean high water, and oh my gosh, graves were unearthed, homes were like spinning, caskets were tumbling on the water. Every substance was mixed into that flood water. And we had widespread contamination. The water inundated 10 to 20 miles inland from the Bering Sea. They say it's no longer safe to build back in a flood zone, in a contaminated area. And I agree with them. They voted 92% of them want to relocate. I'm tired of risking my family's life and all the other members' lives to extreme flooding.
Here we are 7 months after the storm, and it's clear that evacuees are just kind of in this limbo place. They have clearly expressed their preference to relocate, but they continue to grapple with a federal response system that can only facilitate their assimilation to a community that they're uncomfortable with, Anchorage or Bethel. It's just not home, it's different. But also a federal government that says, we'll help you, but you have to return to the site of the tragedy. So FEMA says, we're there for you, but you gotta, you relocate where you are. You rebuild where you are. And in this case, it's a site that is now unstable, likely highly contaminated.
This will not be the only storm. There will be another storm for sure, similar or if not stronger, and most likely will break the flood record again as our land sunk more during and after Halong. The state and FEMA solution is to just build higher. What they don't understand is we don't want to go through another catastrophically devastating storm again, especially with fatalities. That is why we are voicing out to invest the disaster money to our relocation sites. Our village is no longer safe. The land we lived off of, the river we lived off of, is heavily contaminated. It'll take years for it to restore. Cleanup will take years, probably the same amount of years to build at a new site. We want to again let you all know that we are a sovereign tribe. We should not be told what to do. We should be the ones telling what we want to do.